Okay, and I am live, and this is the first time that I'm doing a YouTube live, and I am really excited. Let me first of all share who I am. I am Keith Russell Lee. I am the Senior Minister and Spiritual Director of the Destiny Center for Spiritual Empowerment in Washington, D.C., and in Philadelphia. My chief aim and goal is really to just simply share the principles and the teachings of spiritual law and of Christ to enrich the lives of others. And so I'm on really just talking about how to enrich the lives of others. Now, a few years ago, I wrote my memoir. And in my memoir, it's called The Confessions of a Baptist Preacher and Lessons Learned the Hard Way, where I talk about, my experiences. It's a very candid look at ministry, which I've been in ministry for over 30 years. And I talk about mistakes made. I talk about my victories, but also I give a critique of the Black church. Now, let me share something, folks. I'm not anti-church, but I am objective to look at this wonderful institution that I participated in. And I just hope that these series of videos are going to make a difference within people's lives. Now, I will share, this was my experience, okay? And if you agree or disagree, please let me know. But if it is a blessing to you, let me see some thumbs up, okay? Now, in my chapter where I give the critique of the Black church, I started off by talking about what the Black church has meant to Black people. And I want to encourage you to be able to read the first part. I want to talk about right now co-dependence in the church. Malcolm X stated that when white America catches a cold, he says Black America catches pneumonia. Even though I'm talking about the Black church, certain symptoms are prevalent in all churches. However, these symptoms seem to run rampant in the African American experience. Codependency is a term used to describe behaviors, thoughts, and feelings that individuals hold that go beyond normal kinds of self-sacrifice. Now, notice what I said, normal self-sacrifice. And many have misunderstood that Christianity is all about self-sacrifice and the giving of ourselves. And, you hear that in the songs, I give it all away. And people talk about, how they have surrendered all. I write that many have misunderstood that Christianity is all about self-sacrifice and the giving of ourselves. Jesus taught to deny thyself and pick up the cross. Moreover, the emphasis is placed on dying to self. Those who profess this brand of Christianity must be totally selfless. If not understood correctly, individuals place themselves in an unhealthy state of being and put themselves in positions that go beyond healthy self-sacrifice and caretaking. Being created in the likeness and the image of God and the heir of God and a joint heir with Christ Jesus calls us to have a healthy self-image and perspective of ourselves. And what I have noticed so often in terms of the Black church is that we talk about the self-sacrifice. We talk about all of the giving and of the surrendering of ourselves, but it's such an unhealthy view of who we are. See, I began to start from the premise that we are created and made in the likeness and the image of God, and that we are manifestations of God, that his spirit lives, moves, and dwells and has his being inside of each and every one of us. But if I start the premise from the standpoint that you are nothing more than a filthy wretch, that you are a sinner, that you are a worm, as one hymn calls people. He died for such a worm as I. If I walk around with that unhealthy idea of who I am, it creates an environment that is unhealthy. And what I've seen so often is that unhealthy environment that calls us to some tremendous self-sacrifice and the giving of all that we are to a God that's somewhere up there. And we do that. I write here that the sacrificial death of Jesus on the cross did not happen for us to live in a disempowered state and not take care of ourselves. It is clear Jesus did not make himself available all the time to his followers. It was in those times that he broke away from the crowds and took care of himself and renewed his spirit. The remnant of slave religion and religion of oppression creates a greater emphasis on the theme of self sacrifice and is creating an environment of codependence in the African American church. Codependence is demonstrated often in the members and ministers that seek approval from one another. Church member needs to be affirmed and recognized for their duty and sacrifice by the pastor. It is demonstrated in the sacrifice of time, the sharing of gifts and the abilities with no compensation, and sacrificially giving of tithes and offerings. And you think about that. Isn't that basically the basic church experience here? And notice that, and I write, in my experience, I've seen individuals who have strategized how they could become chair of a committee or even a social event solely for the recognition and the affirmation of from the pastor. These same people, if the pastor did not make a big spectacle over their sacrifice and make mention of their great commitment, would cower in self-pity and become a victim. And this is the state of affairs in many churches where people are looking at somehow they can be able to